Sup, everyone? This is Elijah1 from Financial Anatomy, coming at you with another video to help you take control of your financial destiny. In this live stream, which I know is new because I don't tend to stream on Financial Anatomy, we're actually going to be talking about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency because I've noticed an increase in my views on all the crypto apps. Coinbase, Kraken, even a few videos I made on Cash App concerning Bitcoin. So that's telling me that y'all really want to know more about cryptocurrency and Bitcoin in particular. But I won't actually be alone. I'll be joined by a guest today because he actually knows a lot more about Bitcoin than me. You might be asking, how is that? Because he started researching back in 2012 when it was still kind of in its infancy. See, I found out about Bitcoin, like around 2015, 2016, and I didn't even act on it until like 2018. So he's done more research on it even back then. So he's kind of seen it go through these phases of becoming mainstream, and then how much money it ended up like going up in value from when it first got started. So he's just more informed. That's why this show is going to be pretty interesting and pretty good. His name is Myles Dhillon. He went from borrowing money to flip a house to building and exiting a construction company, then reinventing himself as a property investor and Bitcoin educator. He hosts the Should I Invest in Bitcoin podcast and focuses on building income streams that compound over time. He believes side hustles should not just make cash, but build sovereignty. He's passionate about helping people escape from being financially fragile. So now that I've kind of given him an intro and explained who he is, let's go ahead and bring him on and get this live stream started. So let's go ahead and bring him on. Okay, Myles, we are officially recording now. And one thing we talked a little before him, but I didn't notice this. We both have bookcases in the background. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, man. Yeah, I mean, this is our living room bookcase. So it's kind of like the display of the books that is the good ones. It's the good books here, keep the other ones like hidden away. The embarrassing ones are hidden away. But yeah, this is like the display area when people come to your house and they're like, wow, look at the books you've read. Try and act like I'm really booky. But yeah, I do like reading. But I was late to reading, actually. I only really started reading when I was in my sort of mid-20s. Didn't really enjoy reading when I was younger. But how about you? Are you a big reader?
Yes, I am. This is showing the top half of my bookcase, but the bottom half is more full. Not really into fantasy books or stuff like that. Really into anything that's self-development. So the 4 genres of self-development, if I had to define it, would be health and wellness, finances, relationships, and spirituality. So things in those categories, I tend to find, those will be on my bookshelf. I actually am jumping ahead of myself, audience. I know we kind of jumped into it. You're kind of wondering, like, Elijah, aren't you going to give an official intro? Yes, it's been a while since I streamed on Financial Anatomy, but when I do, it's usually for a special occasion. But we're actually going to be talking about Bitcoin today and crypto, because a lot of y'all really seem to be eating this information up. And over the past few months, the Coinbase tutorials and just explaining how that app works has been getting a lot of views. So that's telling me that y'all are hungry for crypto content rather. So we're here to serve that need. Of course, y'all know me. I'm more a stock market person and also a real estate person. So crypto is probably my weakest area when it comes to investing. That's why I'm glad to have Myles here, because he's much more informed than I am on I won't say interworkings, but I would put him in the expert category of buying and investing in crypto. And I think that's what y'all deserve to hear as viewers. So Myles, I'm assuming you're doing good today, right?
Yeah, man. We're doing great. It's starting to come into spring in London. So it's the miserable part of London that everybody knows, where it's like raining and grey the whole time. That's already passed. And that is a real thing here. So it's definitely passed, and everybody's moods start lifting when the flowers come out and the bulbs come out the ground and the sun comes out. So yeah, it feels like we're out of the dark patch of London right now.
Cool. Yeah, so I actually didn't know there was a stereotypical, like, it rains over there all the time, and that's news to me.
Yeah, it's kind of gray, man. Like December to February is kind of gray and rainy, and it's just not great, but everything looks up once we get to this time of year, man. So I'm feeling good.
Well, that's good to hear. So people might be wondering, And I'm also wondering myself, how did you find yourself getting involved in investing in Bitcoin and also cryptocurrency? Because as we talked a little off air, you've done some investing in other areas like real estate in the past and even ongoing now. So how did you get involved with a cryptocurrency eventually?
Well, actually, it was similar to you. I was investing in some real estate. I was learning about the stock market. I was reading everything that I could find and trying to understand investing. I was reading some day trading books as well, but I wasn't really interested in day trading. I was only really reading that day trading stuff so that I could understand better how to enter, make the entry into a stock rather than trade in and out of it. So I was just reading everything I could. I was buying stocks. I was trying to get involved in companies when they IPO'd. I was just trying everything when I was young to understand financial markets, from a real lay person's perspective. I'm not highly educated in that way. Didn't go to a top school or university. So it was really just learning everything from the ground up. My parents didn't really teach me anything about money either. But I came across Bitcoin really because I was looking for other investments, right? And I found Bitcoin in 2012 when it was under $100, well, around $100. And
so you're an OG. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I described myself as an OG once, and then someone started cussing me out in the YouTube comments, being like, "What kind of loser calls himself an OG?" And I was like, "Okay, if someone else calls me that, that's okay. But I'm not going to call myself that anymore." Because
I'll brand you the OG, so you don't have to.
Okay. Thanks, man. I'll take it. So I was living in India with my wife. She had a job. She's a lawyer. She was working for an international organization, and we met this other couple in a church. And we were the only young couple in the church, and they were the other young couple in quite a big church, international, sort of American-led church. And this guy who had become a mentor to me said, "Oh, Myles, you must meet Sonny and Caro. Come over here." This old English guy. "Come over here and meet them." And then he said, "Myles and Bex, this is Sonny and Caro. You're the young people in the church. You should be friends." So we just looked at each other and said, "All right, yeah, we haven't got any friends, so let's hang out." I'm in the market for friends right now. So we hung out with Sonny and Karen. The first time we hung out with them, this guy, Sonny, Canadian guy, says to me, "Y'all heard of Bitcoin?" And I said, "What?" I didn't even know what that word he was saying was, Bitcoin. It just didn't even, when you hear a new word or you hear some new slang that kids are using, you don't really understand what they're saying. You're like, what is that word? What does it mean? I felt like that. And then the whole evening was gone. It was dominated by discussing Bitcoin and how it wasn't an investment. It was a new monetary system. It was a move away from the legacy financial system. I mean, my mind was blown. It was just all new information for me. And so in that time, I went back home late at night and just started diving into Reddit forums, diving into ways that I could try and buy this thing. And I was like, this is crazy that it's not available on stock trading websites. And I just couldn't understand it. It took me a while to figure it out. And it was also early days, so there wasn't a lot of information there. I'm kind of going on a bit. Is this like, am I answering your question, or do you want to interject? Because I feel like I could just get carried away and just keep talking.
No, you're answering the question. I found it like your description of like the Bitcoin word, like how like, yep. I take it for granted how, because when I first heard of Bitcoin, I want to say it's maybe like 2016, 2017. Still it was a little more, yeah, it's still pretty early, but I didn't actually hop on the bandwagon with everyone else. So I started investing in it like in 2018. It's like, if I got involved in it sooner, I'd probably be a millionaire. And now I know how Mark Cuban felt when he passed on Uber. But when you said the sound of the word Bitcoin just sounded weird because it's a new word. It just kind of reminds me of like this phrase I hear on YouTube that all these Zennials are using nowadays called ore farming. And I didn't know what the hell that was for a while. Then I just I guess I put through context clues what it meant. But by their definition, every anime that came out when I was little, almost every character was ore farming.
Yeah, I did not know what that was at all until just now. So you've like enlightening me into that.
Yeah, it's so funny how words work that way. But yeah, so you've been involved in crypto for like literally over 10 years. Like right at this point in a year, it'll be approaching like 15 years. So
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. But I have to say, I didn't understand what I had. I bought a little bit. I didn't buy enough. I wish I bought more. I bought a little bit because I just added it to what I thought was good portfolio management and having a small allocation of high risk asset, right?
Right.
So I didn't know what it was until probably around the same time as you, 2018. 2018 is when I really started looking at what I owned. I think we were about to buy a family home, and I was looking at what can we afford if I sell stuff, what have we got for renovating the house, and really trying to map out what we can actually manage without putting ourselves in a tricky position. And I logged into my Bitcoin account, and I could see that it was multiples more than what I'd put in. And I knew that the price was going up, but I hadn't really registered how much it had gone up in the 5 or 6 years that I'd owned it. And then I looked at my stock trading account, and I just thought, what? This is like triple my stock trading account that I've been like toiling, sweating, saving away, trying to get money into stocks and shares. But this Bitcoin thing is outperforming everything. And then that then switches your light bulb on. You're like, what the hell is this thing? I need to understand it, because maybe I should really be putting more money into it if that's the situation. And that was my real light bulb moment around them, when I understood that there will never be more than 21 million Bitcoins available to the whole world. When I understood that you can't copy and paste Bitcoin like you can a JPEG or a Word document. When I understood that it's almost impossible to change that. I mean, it's not zero, but it's a sort of almost zero possibility, because everybody who's in Bitcoin would have to decide to create more. And obviously that would be done because people in Bitcoin would then devalue the Bitcoin that they own. There's no possible way that people are going to do that right now. When I understood that it's the opposite to the dollar, it's the opposite to the euro, it's the opposite to the pound, where they can just create at will. They can just print more of them or hit more zeros in a computer and create more of those dollars or pounds. That was when the light bulb switched on for me. And I realized that someone has created digital scarcity in the same way that gold is physically scarce. And that was my light bulb moment. And that's when I started really moving my investment strategy away from physical assets and into much more aggressively into Bitcoin.
So you said in your own way that Bitcoin is kind of like a digital gold mine. Is it safe to say that?
Yeah, I think that's a good way for people to try and understand it. Yeah.
Okay. I know it would be hard to do because it's been a sec, but if you had to guess, what was the times at the X return that you were making on that money you initially put in it? Then when you check back, like, oh, it's grown considerably since the last time I checked on it. Like, how much do you think it was? Like 10 times, 20 times? Like,
Bro, it's crazy. Let me just Google it up now. Bitcoin chart. I mean, because the truth is that I did sell some of it around that time when we bought that house. So if you do on the max, let me do it from here. It's like 14,000%.
good gosh.
14,000%. I don't even know how to understand that. 14,000%. That's crazy. From when I bought my first Bitcoin to now. And to be honest, some people get upset with me because they're like, you shouldn't dox yourself because you're going to get kidnapped or something one day. But I haven't got that much Bitcoin. There's a lot richer people out there than me, so I'm not particularly concerned about that. And also I can run pretty fast and I can punch pretty hard. So if you want to kidnap me, go for it. But there's probably some computer geek in France that will be better to kidnap. So I'm not feeling too worried about it. But yeah, 14,000% since I bought my first Bitcoins. But I've been buying Bitcoin at $100, $10,000, $60,000. I'm buying it right now. I was buying it at $100,000. I've just been slowly accumulating as much as I can, because my goal is every year to have more Bitcoin in my account than I did last year. And that's what I'm always aiming for, to have more all the time, so that it protects me from what I started alluding to, the printing of money, the inflation of goods, the inflation of money. And I think that's probably similar to what people have understood for a long time who invest in real estate and invest in stocks. They need to be able to grow the money they've saved so that it keeps up with inflation, or outperforms inflation, really, so that their purchasing power is more in the future than it is now. And that's what I've understood about Bitcoin. And yeah, I mean, the returns are crazy. I still think we're going to see good returns, especially now the price of Bitcoin is down nearly 50% from its all-time high. And it's the 5th time in its history that Bitcoin has gone up a lot, down a lot, up a lot, down 50, 60%, up 100%, down 50, 60%. So it's followed this pattern for a long time. So it's almost like Bitcoin is on sale right now. And I feel very comfortable recommending people to buy Bitcoin when it's at this price. When it was over 100,000, I started feeling like it's very difficult to tell if it's going to continue going up or we're going to see one of the drops again. And I was starting to sort of, if people were new to Bitcoin, like maybe some of your listeners, I was starting to say, why don't you just wait for a bit? Or if you're going to get in dollar cost average, don't just like smash buy right now because we don't know what's going to happen with the price. But at the moment, at current prices, I'm like, Bitcoin's on sale. Nothing has changed. The only thing that's changed is the price. There's still only going to be 21 million. And if every millionaire in the world wants one Bitcoin per millionaire, there's not enough. There's 63 million millionaires in the world, dollar millionaires. And I think if you work it out to people who have liquid assets, not including property, liquid assets, there's 42 million millionaires in the world. So at some point, if you're rich and you're a millionaire, you may decide, you know what, I want to buy one Bitcoin and add it to my portfolio. There's not enough for everybody. So the only thing that can happen is the price will squeeze upwards until it gets to a point where everybody's happy to pay for one Bitcoin at a certain price. So that's my kind of thesis. I'm happy to like go back and forth with you a bit and see if we can discuss it and work it out and try and quell some of the questions people have about it. I'm also happy to talk about property stuff as well, wherever you want to take it, Elijah.
Well, we can keep it on the Bitcoin and the crypto since that's probably what people are most interested in. But you brought up that's actually a good segue into this question. So like a lot of people, well, they might be hesitant to get into Bitcoin because they're a little uncertain about it. And then they find out a little more about it. And they ask this question. So is it better to just do the stereotypical dollar cost average strategy that you would use like in the stock market, where you're just investing on a regular basis, like, X amount of dollars per week or per month, etc.? Or is it better to just save your money and then just buy Bitcoin during the dips? And then when it starts going back up again, stop, wait for another dip. And then when it hits again, you'll buy when it's low.
Yeah, I think that's really to do with people's personality. And, I think people need to try and figure out for themselves, like what makes them feel comfortable, what makes them sleep well at night. What is the sleep to return ratio?
Sleep to return. That's the first time I heard that.
Sleep to, it's probably not my idea. I don't want to try and claim it, but the sleep to return ratio, if you just smash bought like all your savings for the last year, I mean, I don't know how you manage your finances, but I always try and take a little bit all the time of my income and put it away, some for tax, some for investing, some for like saving for a holiday or whatever you're saving for. I'll try and cut it all up into different things. And I either do dollar cost averaging in, or I think I'm going to invest in this thing. I'm waiting for it. But if you say you save up for a whole year and you're ready to buy Bitcoin, you smash buy it in October last year when it was its all-time high, that sleep to return ratio is horrible. And if you can't sleep well holding an asset that's dropped 50%, then you should dollar cost average. But if you like the game, you want to try and trade it a little bit, then you're obviously a bit more risk averse. So maybe you should smash buy whenever the price hits a lower number. Like every time the price dips 5%, you buy. And when it goes up, you don't do anything. So I think that is a very investor driven mindset question. I can tell you how I did it. I'm not a good trader. I'm an extremely emotional trader. I panic, I sell. I realized that before I got into Bitcoin. And for me, the way I got into Bitcoin, or what I like to say to people is, look, if you're interested in Bitcoin, you should just buy a little bit. Like, what's the risk in just buying a little bit? Not even an inconsequential amount for whatever your income is. And then once you've bought a little bit, you'll then start watching the price, because it's like when you buy a new car and you buy, like, I don't know, a Prius or whatever your car is. You buy a Tesla, right? Suddenly you start seeing Teslas everywhere because you have this like bias in your mind to be drawn towards that. I think it's the same with Bitcoin. When you buy it the first time, it's actually a great way to learn about it, because you see the price go down. Then you want to find out, why has the price go down? And then you might see the price go up and you're thinking, how has it gone up? What's caused this? And then you look at the news, and then you'll then go into some Reddit forum or a YouTube video to find out why the price. And then you start learning about it through owning it a little bit. So I think that's a nice way to get into it. And the way I got more Bitcoin, started accumulating, is I'd just be listening to content and understanding it more. And then something would hit me and there'd be a penny drop moment. And I'd just think, I don't have enough Bitcoin. And then I would just buy. Like, it wouldn't really matter what the price was, because when I was buying it at $20,000, $30,000, it literally doesn't really matter whether you buy at 20 or 30. When it goes up to 120,000, or Bitcoin continues to rise to 400,000, 500,000, $1 million in several years' time, you're not going to care whether you bought it at 60,000 or 70,000 or 100,000. You're going to be looking at, have I done an 8x, 9x, or a 10x on my money? And you won't be that bothered by the little thousands. So I think it's round it off. I think you have to understand yourself and your tenacity of risk and volatility before you decide whether you're going to do DCA or smash buying.
Okay, that's a cool way of looking at it. Now, I'll just clarify in terms of if someone was going to save and buy in the dips, I'm just going to use the framework that we teach on Financial Anatomy. So you have your emergency fund, and obviously that's there for an emergency fund. That should be 6 months to a year's worth of living expenses. So that doesn't get regardless of anything. Then you have your general savings account, and then you have your account that you're going to be using for investments. And investments, it could be real estate, it could be the stock market, it could be crypto, and it's up to you how you want to divide your asset allocation in that regard. But let's just say you're going to focus on crypto and Bitcoin in this case. So the money that you're saving for your investments, you would just let that pile up and buy in the dips, but not necessarily take your emergency fund and then buy all this crypto when it's in the dips. That's, for lack of a better word, stupid.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, I like that model. Yeah, I have something similar. I keep about 6 to 8 months in cash, ready for, not actual cash, in the bank, ready for any problems or emergencies or job loss, medical emergencies, anything like that, really. And I think that's a very smart way to live, and very few people do that. So if your listeners are doing that, it's a fantastic way to not be stressed. And also, you then don't feel that when the price of Bitcoin is down or something has happened, the stock market is down, you don't feel stressed to sell it at the worst possible time. You have access to other cash that allows you to live for a bit longer before you have to sell your precious investments.
Yeah, because generally speaking, you don't want to have to sell an investment. If you want to sell an investment for whatever reason later, that's one thing. But if you have to, when you sell it, the market might not be in the best condition. It could be in a dip. So you have to sell it. So no.
Yeah.
So since we're talking about buying Bitcoin, what platform do you recommend to buy Bitcoin with today? Because there's so many ways that you can buy Bitcoin now. Even Cash App has Bitcoin, which is kind of crazy. Mm-hmm. So what platform do you use to buy Bitcoin or hold it?
Well, I like to use an app called Strike. It's a Bitcoin only app and is available in America and the UK. But it's really up to you. I think that now there's a bunch of stock trading accounts that allow you to buy Bitcoin through that. I think the main thing that's important is, are you allowed with the app that you buy Bitcoin to withdraw your Bitcoin from the exchange? Is it possible for you to take personal custody of it? It's almost like if you're investing in gold and you're thinking, I'm protected because I've got gold and it's a hedge against inflation. That's fine. But if you wanted to take possession of that gold, would you be able to actually hold that physical gold in your hand? It's the same as Bitcoin. Are you actually able to take that off an exchange and hold it on your own computer or hold it on an external hard drive? And if you're not able to do that, I would feel that you're not really buying Bitcoin. You're just buying paper Bitcoin. It's not real. And there have been instances you would have heard of, Mt. Gox, FTX, Sam Bankman-Fried, where you were buying Bitcoin on there, and they were then doing some funny business with your money, like trading it, trying to make returns on your money, and you didn't actually have the Bitcoin unless you withdrew it from the exchange. And because Bitcoin is high risk investment, it's very new, there are a lot of new businesses out there trying to make money from this new sparkly crypto thing. So the only way you can really protect yourself is to be able to withdraw it from an exchange to your own personal wallet, which is we call self-custody in Bitcoin. And so that's my only thing. Coinbase, you can do that. Kraken, you can do that. Cash App, I think you can do. Strike, you can do it. So that's the only thing that I would recommend, really. And then it's just a comparison between the fees depending on how much you're buying, and that's the only thing to look at then.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Is there a platform based on what you just told me that you don't recommend? Like, I recommend you stay away from this platform because the fees are too high, for example.
I used to buy on Coinbase. I used to buy on Kraken, but I've gone away from those two platforms just because of, my commitment to Bitcoin as the superior cryptocurrency by a very, very long stretch. And all those meme coins, you will have heard of, we call them shit coins in Bitcoin, if you're a Bitcoiner. All those other coins, they're really, the vast majority of them are a scam. The vast majority of them are just waiting to rug pull investors. And the fact that these companies like Coinbase and Kraken and some of the bigger exchanges are engaging and platforming these made up nonsense coins. They got things like fart coin, bum coin. There's just like dumb things that teenagers are creating and then making into a coin, like Trump coin, like all the things you've heard of that are just made up things. The fact that they're engaging in that just shows that they're not really committed to the investors. They're actually just committed to making money for themselves, which is fine. They're a business. Maybe that's fine. But for me as a Bitcoiner who is looking at investing in something which is a safety protection against the mainstream financial institutions, I don't want to participate in a system which is making money out of really investors need to gamble on those meme coins. And so that's why I stay away from them, and I only use Bitcoin only apps like Strike now.
Okay. Just kind of riding off of what you said, I like to use this as a tangible example. It's going a little off, well, it's not off topic of crypto, but we're briefly talking about another so-called crypto. So I was actually approached. I'm sharing the screen. This is
I can see you.
This is Coin Market Cap, and I was approached last year by someone that was promoting something called Texit, which is a local cryptocurrency in the state of Texas that I live in. And they pitched this idea of this new cryptocurrency. They're going to be mining it, and they want a lot of commerce comes through the state of Texas, and eventually they want to use this to launch a new like Wall Street here in Texas. And I might be mixing certain details up because I didn't give it that much mind, to be honest. But they're just telling me about this, and when they broke into how do you buy it and how much you need to buy, and like it came off as one of those like Ponzi schemes. So because they approached me about like, hey, you could also promote this on like Financial Anatomy and stuff like that, and like that's something I would never do, even if this was legit. It's one thing if I personally get involved and let's say it tanks or whatever. Well, I personally took that risk. I can handle that, but I would never recommend something like this to my listeners. So that never was going to be on the table. And what I saw was it wasn't available on Coinbase or anything like that. It was available on some of these other alternative ways you can buy cryptocurrency, like Dex Trade. And I saw it on there. So I was like, I think I'll just keep an eye on it. And I'm not going to buy it or, get into this, like not network marketing, but this Ponzi scheme thing. I'm just going to keep an eye on it because I think it's probably a scam. Then fast forward to today. I mean, you see what it is. Right? And it came out that the founder was, doing some shady stuff and it's a scam and all that stuff. So I get what you mean when you say, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, this is a great example to talk about all the other coins that are out there. You've highlighted it perfectly. I mean, if you just look at the total supply and the max supply there, the total supply for this coin is saying it's 68 million. So that means that's how many coins are in circulation right now. And potentially in circulation could be 353 million coins. Now, for the best part of another, it's like 300 million, 290 million coins somewhere. Where are those coins? I can tell you without any doubt, they're in the hands of the creators of the coin, right? And what they're waiting for is for the price to go back up so they can dump their coins, which they hold, on people like us when we like are ready to buy them. But they would need to sell into liquidity, right? They can only sell it when there are people buying it. So when the price spiked up there, I can guarantee they were selling some of their own coins and then taking it out in dollars or taking it out in Bitcoin. And the story is very similar for pretty much all of the other cryptos. And I'm talking about the big ones as well, like Ethereum, Cardano, XRP. And, you know, when you say this stuff, they come after you. They come after you legally as well. I've had legal emails sent to me, but luckily I'm in the UK, so it's very difficult for them to come after me in America. But they come after you and they tell you to cease and desist, like slandering their company. But the truth is, they've got big legal teams. They've got big legal budgets. They've got huge marketing teams that market their coins to people like me and you, who are like financial influencers or educators, however you want to describe us. And they want us to promote it to our followers. And it's the same with every single one. You know, there's always a creator and a founder. And if they're still around, that means that it's not an organic growth coin, and it's being marketed to us. And it's no different to them saying, why don't we just use dollars? Why would we use this other coin that you were showing, Texas coin? It's the same as the US dollar. There's a central body that are in charge of controlling it. It's the same as the pound. It's the same as the euro. It's not singling out America in any way. It's the same as the pound. There's one body in control. That's in Great Britain. That's our central bank, Bank of England. They're in control of the supply. And if they want to issue more of them, they can. And if they want to issue more of them to themselves to pay for bombs in Israel, they can. They can do whatever they like. They control the money. And it's the same with all these other cryptocurrencies. They control the supply. They control the coins. And why would you get involved in something like that? My granddad used to tell me, don't buy anything that someone's trying to sell you. And that has always been, and he was, you know, this was before the internet. He used to tell me that. Don't buy anything that someone's trying to sell you. And so very often when I see things pop up on YouTube or Instagram and it's trying to sell me some product, I'm like, I'm not going to buy this product right now. If it's something I'm interested in, I will go after it myself and decide to buy that. It's the same with crypto. It's like, you shouldn't really be buying something that someone is trying to sell you. And Bitcoin is the only cryptocurrency that doesn't have a founder who's around anymore. He disappeared 14 years ago. It doesn't have a marketing team. There's no marketing budget for Bitcoin. The only people it's marketed by are people who are into Bitcoin, like myself, who believe in it. And I don't get paid anything. It makes no difference whether people buy Bitcoin or sell Bitcoin to my Bitcoin stack. It's too big now. It's a $2 trillion market. There's no way that one individual person can move it unless potentially someone like a huge bank starts moving the market. That is possible, but it's still quite a large market now for them to be able to move it. And for me, as soon as I start seeing a founder team being involved in the manipulation of the price and the coins, it makes me just think, do you know what? I'm just not interested in this. I'd much rather invest in Tesla, in the NASDAQ. If you're going to invest in a basically a tech startup like XRP, Ethereum, or Solana, it's so high risk. It's not regulated either. And you have no control over it. You're not a shareholder. You're just a bag holder. You know, you're just holding the bags until someone else might buy it off you for a different price. So that's kind of my attack on crypto market in general. There's Bitcoin, which is the original cryptocurrency, and then all the others, and none of them can compete. Bitcoin's market cap is around 60% of the whole crypto market. And then none of the others are even close to that. I mean, some of them are like 5, 6, 7%, but the rest of them are all copies of Bitcoin or trying to do Bitcoin plus something. And that's also down to Bitcoin's open source code as well. Like if you're a coder, you can look at the code of Bitcoin. And if you want to, you can copy and paste it and create Bitcoin 2.0 and try and run it yourself. But the fact is now Bitcoin's got so much traction behind it that it doesn't need a marketing team. It doesn't need anyone to promote it. And it's just doing its thing every day, transferring value between different people all over the world.
You know, I love how you broke down the other cryptocurrencies in that way, because when you think about it, doesn't that defeat the whole purpose of what cryptocurrency is supposed to be? The whole appeal behind Bitcoin was this isn't going to be controlled by these central banks and institutions that may not have our best interests in mind. It's just going to be like a neutral thing that people will value based on the times and what's going on. But these other cryptocurrencies, it's like the central bank is just being replaced by the founders team.
Yeah, dude. And I don't have anything against America. I actually love America, dude. I'm coming to America tomorrow. I'm flying to Washington tomorrow, actually. I freaking love America, and I have nothing against American people. I actually am a big supporter of America, like around the world as well. You know, when there's a lot of hate towards your president in other countries, I'm always like, guys, are you sure you want to be against Donald Trump? Because whatever your political view is, I don't care what side you're on in my country or another, would you rather Donald Trump be in control or Vladimir Putin or President Xi of China? And I'm just like, you choose. I'm choosing America, man, because I feel like we're more aligned on everything. So I'm a big lover of America. I love American culture, sports, everything. I'm into it. But what I'm not a big lover of is the dollar. I think that it is a manipulated currency, and I really believe that it's not being used in our best interests for the population, not just of America, but also the world, because it's the global reserve currency. And that was why I liked Bitcoin. I thought this gives us protection against the manipulation of the dollar, and then as a result, the manipulation of my own currency. And yes, you're right. If it's not decentralized, all it is, it's another internet dollar. Internet Ethereum is just the internet dollar with a founder who controls it. But the founder of Ethereum is, he's a genius. He's a total genius. He's called Vitalik Buterin. But I don't want to back him. I don't want him to be the person that's in control of where I put my investment. He could go crazy and just lose his mind, and that's it. The whole project goes down the pan. At least when you're investing in Tesla, and Elon Musk goes nuts, at least there's a whole board, and someone else could take over the company. But with these other cryptocurrencies, if the founder goes down, that's it. Your money goes up in smoke. It's gone.
Yeah, I mean, I love you're a realist. I appreciate that. But kind of swinging back to we never left the topic, but some people probably want to know, like, okay, so I'm sold on Bitcoin. I know I missed out on it back in 2012 when it first, I don't know when it was actually first initially created, but like I missed out on taking advantage of it when I was younger. So let me go ahead and get involved in it now. Like, what are some mistakes do you see like new Bitcoin investors make that end up costing them money?
Yeah, good question. Very good question. I think the first thing is that mindset, thinking I've missed out on Bitcoin. I don't think that's true. I think it's very, very early still. And you can verify that by just going around your office or walking around the street and asking people about Bitcoin. People basically know nothing about it, And I do that. I ask people all the time. People don't know anything about it. They have no clue. All they've read is a headline on CNN that it's used by criminals and they're not interested. They haven't done any research. They haven't spent any time on it. So we're all early. And if you're hearing this, you're early to Bitcoin, right? You're still early. And the other thing is, we don't say that about property. We don't say, my parents bought property for like $2.99 and now it's worth $1 million. So I'm not going to buy property. That's just dumb. Don't do that. That doesn't mean property isn't going to continue to rise in value just because your parents bought it much cheaper than you bought it. It's the same with Bitcoin. It's like, I really believe that in the future, our children will say to us, wow, you bought Bitcoin at under $100,000. That's crazy. And they'll be like, my granddad bought Bitcoin for under $100,000. And then people are like, whoa, that is crazy. Your granddad's a legend. And I really believe that will be a thing that happens. But sorry, I digress. But your question about the mistakes I see people make. The first is that people don't take the security of Bitcoin seriously. Like I was saying earlier, once you buy Bitcoin, there's no marketing team, and therefore there's no CEO. There's no customer support team. There's no one who's going to come and rescue you if your money gets lost. And the way people lose their money is not through scams or through hacking, is actually through sending it to the wrong address. So if you take it from Coinbase and you send it to yourself, it could just get lost forever if you don't do it correctly. Or you take it from Coinbase, you send it to yourself, and then you forget what your password is for your Bitcoin wallet. That's it. There's no one you can call up and reset your password. That doesn't exist. There's no customer support team for Bitcoin. They're just not there. It is full on personal responsibility back to what it was like when our great grandparents would have had to hold gold for themselves and protect it for themselves. So that is something that I think people don't really take lightly. There are companies that offer custody of Bitcoin, but then you're putting trust into a third party organization, which is fine if you're not up for looking after it yourself. But the biggest mistake I make is I see people not really educating themselves properly about the methods for self-custody in their Bitcoin. And I'm making it sound complicated. It's really not. If you know how to use the internet and send emails, and make an attachment to an email, you can manage your own Bitcoin very well. It just takes a little bit of, a couple of YouTube videos and a bit of practice with $50 rather than, your whole Bitcoin stack, practicing sending $50 around. And then you can feel comfortable about it. And then that's one of the mistakes I see people do. They get their Bitcoin on Coinbase and they transfer $50,000 onto their wallet and it goes to the wrong place. And you just think, why did you do that? Why didn't you just do $50 first to make sure it landed in the right place and then send the whole lot after that? I've heard some really sad stories of people doing that.
Is your fear of personal finance holding you back from going after what you want? What if I told you there was a way to get rid of your insecurities? Every person has their own way of making money, budgeting style, and a way of spending money. The key to financial success is the ability to use the right styles for you that ensure success. So rather than making you focus on avoiding your emotions, this book focuses on empowering them and using them to achieve what you want. Learn how to build and increase the income streams you desire. Understand how to budget your money in a way that you are always moving forward financially. Know how to remove the stress from spending money by knowing what works best for your personality. Learn methods to effectively evaluate a financial opportunity within minutes to see if it's right for you. The Anatomy of Financial Success, the key to building financial confidence and destroying insecurities about money. Buy now. Available in ebook, audiobook, and paperback.
Yeah, because I'm trying to think of what video I want to reference, because it's really not that different from like if you transferred like cryptocurrency from one wallet to another wallet. The process is pretty much the same, right? If not similar.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a tutorial on how to do that on using Coinbase and also using Cash App. So I'll be sure to link those in the description.
Right.
But don't just look at mine, audience. Like look at you can look at other videos too. And I think most importantly, like you said, do a test run, like $5, $10, just to see the transaction went through. And then if it went through, okay, and then you can. But I can see how that's definitely the most costly mistake a beginner can make.
Very sad. I did it myself. I once sent $1,000 and then I thought I was sending it to myself, but I realized I sent it to a friend because I sent a friend $10 of Bitcoin like several years before. And he was like, mate, thanks for the money. And I was like, oh, bro, do you mind sending that back? And then he sent the tears emoji saying, I thought it was a mistake. I was just winding you up. So luckily I knew him so he could send it back to me. But that was very, very rare, very unlikely that it was actually someone who I still was in touch with and was kind enough to send it back to me. Obviously, I lost a couple of cents in the transfer fee, but it's very easy to do. And that was because I was doing it while I was sitting on the sofa. The kids were running around. I was distracted and I wasn't concentrating. Whenever I do Bitcoin transfers now, I tell everyone, guys, I'm doing some Bitcoin stuff. Do not disturb me. And then I just lock into what I'm doing. I don't want any distractions whatsoever. Switch my phone off. I just don't want to make any mistakes. As the price rises, the stakes just get higher.
Hey, that's a good habit. Like when you're about to make a big purchase, well, maybe that should just be done in general, not just
financial things.
Yeah, especially big purchases or like big transactions, I'll say.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
So all markets like have a cycle, and like the stock market has crashed, then rebounded, crashed, and rebounded. Same goes for real estate. For the longest time, people were hesitant to invest in Bitcoin because it was so new. Like, well, it hasn't been tested. It hasn't really gone through a cycle. We've never seen it, crash and then officially rebound. That was the rhetoric probably a few years ago. This time around, I think people can't say that anymore because we've seen Bitcoin has its own cycle. How can you tell like what part of the cycle the current big market is in? Is there certain signs that people should be looking for? Because it's good to know this, regardless if you're going to buy when it's a dip or if you're going to do dollar cost averaging. It's good to just know these cycles.
So Bitcoin traditionally has gone in 4-year cycles. And there's a bunch of theories around why it goes in the 4-year cycle. And some people say it follows the business cycle that generally goes in 4-year cycles. Some people say that it's to do with the halvening, which the halvening is when the Bitcoin miners, the people who process all the transactions and keep the network of Bitcoin secure, because Remember, it's not one organization that are processing all these transactions. It's thousands of people all around the world checking and sending transactions on your behalf. If you're not participating in the network, your other people are doing it on your behalf. But there's many, many people checking that what you're saying. If I send one Bitcoin to you, there'll be thousands of computers around the world. I'm simplifying it a bit, checking that I actually have Bitcoin to send to you and that you will receive the Bitcoin. That's a very simple version of how Bitcoin transactions are made and how miners secure the network. But when miners do that, they have to crack a very complicated maths calculation in order to be the miner that then processes the transactions that happened in the last 10 minutes. And if they crack that maths calculation, they're rewarded with what we call the block reward. And at the moment, the block reward is 3.125, I may get the number wrong, 3 point something Bitcoin right now. But when Bitcoin started, the block reward was 50. And then after 4 years, it halved and went down to 25. And after 4 years, it's halved, went down to 12.5. Then it went down to 6.25. And now we've got to 3.125. So every 4 years, the reward for processing the transactions gets halved. And it normally, what has happened so far in Bitcoin is when the halvening happens, which happens every 4 years, the price of Bitcoin 1 year or around a year afterwards starts to rise. And we normally see a bear market in the 3 years in the build up to the halving. And there are people who have theories that say it's nothing to do with that, to do with the business cycle. But so far, Bitcoin has roughly followed that. We normally have a sort of 2.5 to 3 years of a bear market, then a year to a year and a half of up market. And it's normally to do with around a year and a half after the halvening. And the next halvening is happening, I believe, in 2027, April 2027, I think is when the next halvening has happened. Oh gosh, I need to check that actually. Maybe you should put that in the show notes to check. When the next halvening happens, the reward will go down into like half of 3.125, and potentially we'll then see another bull run when that happens. So right now we saw an all-time high in October. That was the highest Bitcoin ever got to, and people believe that that was the end of the bull run. And now we're going to see a year or 2 or 3 years of down market where we'll either see the price bobbling up and down or flat at a relatively low value. But usually what happens is, so far in Bitcoin history, is the price crashes down to a similar level to the previous cycle's all-time high. So when people say Bitcoin's crashed, Bitcoin's died, it hasn't actually crashed, because a traditional crash would mean that it's crashed back to nothing, a bit like that crypto that you showed me a few minutes ago, the Texas coin. That's gone back to almost below what it even came out at. But Bitcoin will go up, shoot up, and then come back down a bit. Then it'll shoot up, but it'll come back down, but not below where it was before. Then it'll shoot up. So
like
that's the kind of
upward graph trajectory, like that.
Yeah, yes. If you do a logarithmic view, it's always upward trajectory so far. But right now, there's a big debate within the Bitcoin community whether we're going to come out of this 4-year cycle and move into a different zone where we might see a wiggly up and down for the next 10 years as Bitcoin gets adopted more and there's sort of Wall Street getting involved, or are we going to see a longer crypto winter until more nation states start adopting Bitcoin, and then we'll start seeing the price moving up? So I think at the moment, it's looking like it's going to play out in the 4-year cycles, but that could obviously change at any point.
Okay. So that's actually a great way to determine, well, some people might ask, like, how can you tell when Bitcoin is overvalued or undervalued? And based on what we've already kind of talked about, you could argue that there's really no undervalued moment, period. But if we wanted to give a more nuanced answer to that question, looking at it from that perspective kind of gives you the framework to come to your own conclusion based on what you consider is overvalued and undervalued.
Yeah, I think it doesn't take long to spend a little bit of time and have a look at the cycles of Bitcoin. And then you just need to decide, am I going to bet that Bitcoin is going to continue in the pattern that it's followed for the last 16 or 17 years? Or do I think it's going to break out of that pattern? And, you know, either way, I think for me, the price is moving upwards slowly. The third option is Bitcoin breaks forever and it goes down out of the current cycle and Bitcoin starts losing value over the next 4 or 5 years until it eventually comes to zero. But I think the more Bitcoin goes on, the longer Bitcoin continues for, the less likely the Bitcoin going to zero scenario becomes.
Makes sense. Okay. So one thing about the stock market, and I guess you could argue real estate too, to a certain degree, these assets are very news sensitive. Like if someone says something a little off or if something is said on the news that could impact the S&P 500 or the Nasdaq immediately that day, it can drop several points. Like this Bitcoin is in a different category, but in your opinion, have you seen like news be able to impact the price of Bitcoin daily or weekly in terms of on a regular basis?
Yeah. I mean, the last market cycle where we saw Bitcoin hit $68,000, $69,000 5 or 6 years ago, that was around the time that Elon Musk said that Tesla were going to hold Bitcoin on their balance sheet, and Tesla do still hold Bitcoin on their balance sheet, and they held it on their balance sheet for a while, and then they decided they were going to sell some of it, and Elon announced that he's selling some Bitcoin. Price went down. Bitcoin price went down. But then he came out later and said, he still really likes Bitcoin. They were just selling some to test the liquidity and see if it's possible to get rid of some. But there are obviously large actors that are able to affect the price. When your president talks about Bitcoin, the price moves up a bit. And when one of his kids talks about Bitcoin, the price moves up a bit. So I think there are a few people who people are sensitive to that can affect the price right now. So I don't think it's immune from that phenomenon.
For those of y'all that hear the airplane passing by, sorry for that.
I can't hear it.
Oh, you can't hear it?
Yeah.
Huh. Well, if you can't hear it, I'm not gonna make a big deal out of it. But I will say this: like last year, I think it was last year towards the end when Trump made the announcement that he was gonna start making moves to eventually have the. I'm trying to think of how he phrased it. Basically, the Federal Reserve notes in the U.S. He thinks it would be a good idea if they were phased out and replaced with Bitcoin in terms of since Bitcoin is going to continue to increase in value. I'm pretty sure that had I didn't check that day because I was real busy.
Yes.
But I'm pretty sure that had an impact on the price. It probably went up maybe 5%.
Yeah, it definitely did. Yeah, it definitely did. And I think there is actually a lot of sense in the things that he says. Like I was saying earlier, I'm a fan of America. I would be happy if the dollar continued to be the global reserve currency. I would be happy if America continued to sort of regulate global security to a certain extent, within kind of the bounds of what I think is moral. And I would prefer for America to be in control than anybody else right now. So I would want America to build a strategic Bitcoin reserve, because I feel like whoever has the gold calls the shots, and that has been how it's been for a long time. But I think the world is changing now, and I think it's going to come to a scenario where whoever has the Bitcoin will be calling the shots, because I really don't believe that there's going to be a world where Bitcoin isn't important in a global economic situation, and I would like America to be at least a major player in that.
Speaking of that, since Bitcoin is something digital, people are always concerned about like hackers and like stuff like that, even if they're not informed on like what exactly that means. They associate like digital. Oh, there's a threat of like some hacking stuff happening. So like, what are some security steps that someone like new investors should know to take when it comes to investing in Bitcoin to protect their assets?
So the first thing to say is, and people find this surprising, Bitcoin itself has never been hacked. So the most sophisticated programmers in the world have been trying for a long time in a sort of benevolent way to test the Bitcoin code, and it's so far not been hacked. And any bugs that have been involved in it have always been fixed, and that was very early on in Bitcoin. Before I got into it, there were some things that were not perfect when Bitcoin first came out, but they've been fixed before I was even involved. So Bitcoin has never been hacked. When you hear that someone has been hacked, what's happened is you buy Bitcoin on the Coinbase website, and then you're holding your Bitcoin on Coinbase. Now, your password for Coinbase is like 10 characters or 12 characters or something like that. That's very easy for someone to figure out, or for a very sophisticated computer to guess. And that's when people's Bitcoin gets hacked. It's actually the website that has been hacked. So that's why Bitcoiners will talk about it's very important to take custody of your Bitcoin, like I was talking about earlier. Once you take custody of your own Bitcoin, you keep it in a hardware wallet, it's protected by a 256 long scrambled password. So that's what's not been hacked so far. And I'm also simplifying that as well, so people don't start hating in the comments to be like, I don't want to go I don't really understand the deep technical aspects of it. But when I think about things like quantum computing that people talk about a lot now. People say, oh, quantum is going to hack the Bitcoin code. If quantum becomes a real thing, what do you think is going to be more worrying? Your 4-digit PIN number for your bank card, or a 256 string scrambled password for a Bitcoin? You know, and also if quantum does come online, we're in trouble anyway, because banking will be affected, nuclear codes will get hacked, water treatment facilities will get hacked. Like, Bitcoin will be the least of our worries, you know, if that comes online. So Bitcoin so far has not been hacked. And if you really are going to start putting considerable money, or we're going to start committing some serious resources to Bitcoin, it's worth starting to understand why you shouldn't trust other websites to look after your Bitcoin, and why you should take custody of it for yourself, so that you're not at risk of being hacked. On your account is not at risk of being hacked on a website.
So that's kind of the trade-off. Like, if you take control of it yourself, pretty much no chance of you getting hacked, but you have to take full responsibility. Like, have your password saved in like a private doc or something like that. But if you don't want to deal with all that, then you could let a third party like Coinbase hold it.
Yeah.
And they'll take care of that for you. But then you're at greater risk of what you're talking about happening.
Yeah. So it's just, again, a bit like what we said about how to invest in Bitcoin. It's just, you know, I only recently got my mum and dad's Bitcoin off Coinbase and onto a hardware wallet, because when the price rose, I was like, this is just too risky to keep it on there now. So my parents are not that tech savvy. I guess you need to just figure out how, you know, if something happened to me, are they going to be able to figure out how to get it off their hardware wallet without me being around? And, you know, we went through all the stuff. I basically trained them in how to do it. So you need to understand, you know, for yourself, are you a tech savvy person? And, you know, are you able to understand these things? If not, don't bother. Then fine. Some Bitcoiners who are real maxis get really upset when Bitcoiners say, I just keep it on an exchange. Then fine. If it's more risky for you to take it off, you need to do the risk analysis and decide to keep it on the exchange. Because the reality is, at the moment, someone like Coinbase, if they got hacked, they're probably going to give you your Bitcoin back anyway. They're going to take it out of their own reserves and pay you back. But maybe if you're on a smaller exchange, where the fees may be less, but they may not have the proof of reserves that Coinbase will have, then maybe that's a bit more risky, because if they get hacked, the whole company might go bankrupt or something, and you're not going to get your Bitcoin back.
You know, that actually, let me think about this, because like one big thing about these crypto, I don't want to say exchanges, but like people have always wondered, is it FDIC insured? And let me just type in. No, normally it's not. But I'm kind of wondering, I would love your opinion on this. Do you think in the future that might potentially change as more people get involved in crypto or in Bitcoin, or you don't really see that changing? I personally, I guess I can see a case for either way, but at the end of the day, this is an exchange. It's not a bank and a savings account. There's no lawful obligation to offer the FDIC insurance. Well, technically, there's not, ironically, for a lot of banks to either. They just do it because they know you're not going to bank with them if you don't.
Yeah. Your money's not really your money at the bank, is it? It's not really there. So just a little bit of it's there. They've lent it to somebody else. But no, I think that we're a long way away from that. You know, people talk about this phrase called hyper-Bitcoinization. That's a sort of utopian world that Bitcoiners dream about, where everybody's using Bitcoin to work and exchange with. Like, if in 50 years' time we the dollar has collapsed and we decide to use Bitcoin as the global reserve currency, then maybe they're going to do that. But I think we're a very long way away from it being insured.
Right. Yeah, I did have a thought that I want to share with the audience when it comes to, like, let's say if you don't want to use one of these exchanges, you want to take agency of yourself, and then you're going to recommend other people to do that too. But let's say they are older, and if something happened to you, you have concerns that they would be able to access it because they're not tech savvy. You could treat it like a lot of businesses treat their SOPs. So like they'll record themselves doing a task and then the steps, and then provide that as training. But in this case, you wouldn't want to have that to the general public. You could put it on a hard drive. Say, look, if something happens to me, just access this hard drive. I'm going to walk you through the steps on how to take the Bitcoin out and the password and all that. Just have it on a physical hard drive. that they can have and follow instructions for.
I got it. Yeah. I mean, I probably should do that for my wife. Actually, I should probably film like a video that doesn't show any of the codes or passwords or anything, so that if something happened to me and my wife while we're traveling or something, then yeah, because it's a good wake up for me. Like I'm pretty good on my security, but maybe on my inheritance planning, I haven't made as many plans for that because I feel healthy and young, and you don't think about those things until you start getting ill.
Right, until you start getting old.
Yeah.
I think you said until you start getting young. If we could stay young, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, which could be possible.
Cool. So yeah, we're about to hit the hour mark, so we'll start winding down in a sec. But I usually ask people anytime I do a live stream or show on the side of society if they have any questions that they want to hit me with. So I'll go ahead and continue that tradition. Is there something you want to ask me, Myles?
Yeah, I would be interested in what for you. I've listened to a bunch of your videos now, but what's if you were only going to invest in one asset, you're only allowed to invest in one asset for the rest of your life, what would that be for you?
Real estate. Look, yeah. I know we just had a whole show about cryptocurrency, and I respect it. But for me, real estate, because there's more control over my return in real estate physically, and there's things I can do to change if something's not working out. I'll use my Airbnb units, for example. Like, let's say if people aren't booking, or like for whatever reason, it's just unusually slow. Well, I can actually go in there and start moving the furniture around, or paint some walls, or like, well, maybe short-term rentals are just not in thrill this season. Like, let's convert it to a midterm rental unit, or let's just go traditional real estate and see if we can find a tenant for like a year or two and sign a lease. And one of the most fastest ways of gaining wealth is actually a tactic called Subject 2. Are you familiar with a Subject 2?
No, it must be an American thing, but explain it for your listeners anyway.
It probably is an American thing, but essentially, there are people that they're behind on their mortgage and they need to sell, but let's just say the situation isn't lining up for them to sell, but they don't want to get foreclosed on and have their credit ruined and all that stuff. So you approach them as a real estate investor saying, okay, well, here's what I can do for you. I'd love to buy your property, but given the state of the property, or like whatever reason that this isn't selling on traditional market, and I'm not going to make enough money if we were to do like some other strategy, how about we make a deal where you just deed your property over to me? I'll take over the mortgage payments. And at the end of the mortgage payment, when it's finished, legally, I'll own the deed. That way, your name is still going to be on it, but I'm going to be paying the note. And we have an agreement so that at the end of the mortgage, when it's paid, it's automatically deeded over to me. So you can literally take over you can get involved in a real estate deal without having to go through the normal qualifiers of like qualifying.
So with that, do you make a return? Like, can they pay you more than the cost of the mortgage every month?
Can they pay you more?
Yeah. So are you making a return every month, or is that just a long-term investment waiting for the end of the mortgage to come to an end?
Well, that's a long-term. I'm trying to understand your question. In this case, it's all about building your net worth. So you taking over the payments, and then they're going to move out. Okay. So like their problem is solved. They're out of the house. Okay.
I see. Okay. They're not living in the house anymore after that. Okay.
Yeah. If you're wise. Now, if you're stupid, then the point is they move out and they can move on with their lives, and you're going to take over the situation, and it's going to be deeded to you at the end of the process. But in the meantime, okay, you have the property now. So now you can get a tenant in there. You can turn it into a rental unit, a short-term rental unit. Or if you wanted to, you could technically sell that house to someone else and do a wraparound mortgage for more than you're paying. And then you have cash flow of maybe $200 to $400 more in addition to you still having that mortgage paid. There's several ways to structure that deal, but the baseline is a Subject 2.
Okay, yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I like that. That in the UK, that doesn't really work because they've got some like really socialist laws around taking over a property. You could do that, but the person who's paying the mortgage would have a right to be able to stay inside that property for quite a long time. And you'd have to end up evicting them. Even if you owned the property, it would be like really complicated.
Yeah, and that's what I meant by I wouldn't be surprised if it is something that you can only do in America.
Yeah, sounds good though to me, man. Sounds like a good deal.
Yeah, but for those reasons and more, that's why it's always going to be real estate for me. I mean, the stock market, crypto, I think they're great. In fact, I think crypto in particular, I think it's great for. It's not speculation in the traditional sense, but I have like two parts of my like paper portfolio. There's the safe and secure side, then there's the speculative side. And for the longest time, I put Bitcoin probably in the speculative side. So I'll do like 80% safe and secure, 20% like speculative. But it's been gradually, based on what I'm seeing, I can probably start to put it into the other category now.
A little bit, yeah. A little bit. Yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to you getting in touch and being like, hey, sold all my rental properties, gone all in on Bitcoin. I'll be like, whoa, that's a real turnaround. No, I'll be really surprised if that happens. But yeah, I mean, just so everyone knows, I have some rental properties as well. I am selling one at the moment, and I'm probably going to buy some Bitcoin with it. But I enjoy real estate, and having real estate has given me the ability to be able to invest in other things. So I've used my real estate income to be able to buy more Bitcoin as well. So it's not like they haven't gone hand in hand in some ways.
Yeah, I think that's slept on. Using an asset, the cash flow of an asset to buy another asset. Especially if you're over leveraged on one particular thing. Like it's just you have all this money in the stock market. If you want to rebalance well, first of all, consult with your tax advisor, because if you do sell a bunch of something, depending on when you're selling it, you could have a massive tax bill. So consult with your enrolled agent first. But assuming things line up, like let's say you actually lost money in the stock market on some investments, so you're selling and then you would actually get a tax deduction. Maybe then you can take that money and put it in one of the other assets.
Yeah, that does work here as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So Myles, where can people get more of you if they want to hear more about Bitcoin? And also you have a few other things going on. So like feel free to drop your website and social media for people to you.
I mean, the easy way to find me or contact me is my website, mylesdhillon.com. That's got all the links and everything. And then the podcast is everywhere. It's called Should I Invest in Bitcoin? ? And the answer is yes, you should a little bit invest in Bitcoin. So yeah, check that out if you want to learn more about it.
Okay. Real quick, what's the craziest thing you've encountered on your podcast?
Dude, probably actually, I don't know if it's a very good answer. The craziest thing I've encountered is weird people trying to come on your podcast, and then you say they sound great, and then they come on, and then you're like, this person can't even talk properly, and then you have to end this. You probably want to edit this out, but I don't know. You have to end the podcast early because you're just like, this person either is talking absolute nonsense and they haven't done any of the stuff that they say they've done because they're trying to style out they're like some big time business guy and they're just trying to boost their profile using your podcast. They've got nothing interesting to say, or they are a really interesting business person, but they can't talk. So you're thinking, why have you tried to come on a podcast? This is just a talking thing. You can't have a conversation with someone. That's the weirdest thing. Like I've met some really amazing people. Like getting to have a conversation with you is like fantastic. But then I've also met some strange people, and I just think, man, the internet is full of strange people, man.
Wow. Well, if you want me to, I can edit that part out of your request. I think it'd be spicy. It'd be spicy. I left it in. To be honest.
That's totally up to you. And if the couple of people who have come on my podcast hear that, that's great, because they know I was not enjoying it. Because I was just honest with them. I said, guys, I have to stop this interview because I didn't like slam them. I just said, I just don't think you're ready for this yet. I think you need to work on your presentation skills. And they were like, oh, right. And I was like, I'm just going to save us both time because I'm not going to air this anyway. So let's just end it now. So they hopefully they've improved since I last spoke to them.
Yeah, I mean, there's a difference. I mean, there's a chemistry. Like there's some people, for whatever reason, you have great chemistry. The conversation flows very naturally. And then there's more people where y'all might not flow as well because y'all don't have the chemistry. But at the end of the day, they still are an authority figure and they know what they're talking about. So it's still a good show. But what you're talking about, these are people that they don't have anything to say, really. They just want the clout from your show. Or they do have something to say, but they don't have the communication skills to get it out. And then you as a podcaster, you're going to try and do your best to pull it out of them. And it's just not working. Like, there's nothing more that can be done. I mean, we can't do it. Did I describe it pretty accurately?
Yeah, you got it. I was just like, man, this is such hard work. I'm just going to end it now. Well, but I love talking to you, man. I hope you didn't feel like this about me, just like whacking on about Bitcoin the whole time.
Now, speaking of podcasts, I'm actually slacking. I should be doing my normal, like, hey, yo, give us a thumbs up for the YouTube algorithm. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new and all that good stuff, which I'm doing it now. I mean, if you do that, audience, that's greatly appreciated. But while you're doing that, be sure to check out Myles' website, and we'll leave the link to his website in the description. And you're active on LinkedIn too, right?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn quite a bit. Yeah, I'm trying to figure that whole thing out because it feels like the sort of professional social media. So I'm just trying to work out LinkedIn now and do a bit more on there. I'm starting to move away from Twitter, and I do a little bit of stuff on Instagram because it's kind of like my friends are there on Instagram. But I think LinkedIn is a good place to try and like professionalize social media, and I think that's where I'm going to try and focus a bit more.
I don't blame you for moving away from X. It's quickly becoming the place where the king of the ultra petty hang out.
yeah, such bad energy.
Yeah. Well, Myles, I appreciate you coming on the show. So yeah, I definitely enjoy the rest of your day. And everyone already said this, but I do it at the end of every show. Like the video, greatly appreciate it. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new, and don't forget to check out what Myles has going on his website and also on his podcast, because he has a lot of good content over there. And you talk about other things aside from Bitcoin. You talk about other ways of making money, right? Like different streams of income.
Yeah, I do talk about other stuff, but it's sort of all sort of centered around Bitcoin. But then you have to get into other things, don't you? Because you have to have money to be able to invest the money. So yeah.
Right. So he's got a lot of good information over there. Y'all be sure to check it out. We're going to go ahead and log off. Y'all enjoy the rest of your day. And like I say on Financial Anatomy, make sure you get out there and take control of your financial destiny.